talked about a couple of things today in my speech. I talked about the three revolutions that have occurred during the 10-year lifespan of the work of my project, the Pew Internet Project. First, it's the rise of the internet and broadband connectivity. When we first were looking at this, about half the population used the internet, no one used broadband. Nowadays, 3/4 of adults use the internet, 93% of teenagers, and 2/3 of everybody has broadband at home. So it's a completely different internet environment for people, and that's changed the way that they gather information, changed the way they communicate, changed the way that they participate in their own culture. They use the internet to tell stories, to share media, to pitch their voices into the online commons. The second revolution I talked about was mobile connectivity. We have now chronicled that more than half the population, 57%, connects to the internet through a mobile device, either from their cell phones, about 40% of people do that, or from their laptops. Almost everybody who owns a laptop connects mobily, and so that adds up to 57% of the population who have access to the information they want, the people they want, wherever there is a device or wherever they can carry around something. It's changed the way that they relate to people, the way they relate to information, changed the very definition of what place and presence means in their lives, and it means that they change the way that they allocate their attention to media. There's a lot of ways now that people info snack, or they have attention diverted to multiple devices and things like that. So that's a big artifact of the mobile revolution. The third revolution I talked about was the social networking revolution, which in some respects predates the internet, and people were changing their social networks long before the internet came into play. But of course, with the rise of Facebook, MySpace, Bebo, Friendster, and organizations like that, about half the population now is part of a technological social networking space, and it's changed the way that they think about commerce, the way they think about accessing their friends. The very nature of their social networks have changed. There are more people in them, they're more segmented, they're more diverse, and then we looked a little bit ahead into some of the things that are coming down the line. Pew is not the laser gun sound on the internet. We call ourselves a fact tank, and it's a different part of the bestiary in Washington where we actually don't have an agenda driving our work. We're not supposed to promote internet policies, promote technologies over somebody else, companies or individuals. We're supposed to do primary research that might be useful to people like you, but we're not doing it in the cause of anything. So they literally hired someone with no functioning belief system to operate this place, and I'm just hoping that my lack of belief system will not prevent me from giving you data that might be useful for the things that you do. A lot of the surprises that we get in our data are only surprises to people who don't do surveys all the time. There are lots of ways in when we launch on a piece of research that we kind of know what the answers are going to be. And maybe it's because I'm a guy, though, that there have been a couple of surprises that relate to women and their experience of technology. Early on in the life of the project, we did research that showed that women were just as interested and just as active in gaming spaces as men. Now, this cut against a stereotype that we have in our culture, where gamers tended to be, young guys who were sitting in their basements with their pajamas on and pizza boxes and Mountain Dew cans surrounding them. Well, there's a lot of that going on, and there are guys who are really into their games. But women were into games as well, although different kinds of games. They were into role-playing games, simple board games, card games, and things like that. And in many respects, were taking advantage of the social opportunities that gaming provided in ways that men weren't. So we, in early days, actually saw that women were more enthusiastic about online gaming than men were. Now it's about evened off because almost everybody is doing some level of gaming online, and so there isn't any direct difference between the genders, but they're playing different things and feeling different things about those games and thinking differently about the social experiences that go on those games. So that would be surprise number one. The second is that social networking and all the capacities of the social internet to engage with people, starting with email, going through instant messaging, as well as the social networking spaces. Women are much more active and engaged than men are. Men are sort of hunters. They go out and find what they want and then retreat from what they're doing. Women are much more excited about the social elements of this, like to stay in touch with their friends, like to update their friends, read updates in whatever form they are and whatever platform they are. And so by every metric that we gather information about social experiences online, it's women more than men who are the enthusiasts and the greater participators, even though it's also true that men are the early adopters of technology and kind of have the reputation of being tech enthusiasts more than women do. So every trend that we look at is going to continue over the next few years for some obvious reasons. Computing capacity is getting better. Bandwidth is growing. Our capacity to store things cheaply is getting even better. So all of the fundamentals of the technological space are improving. And so in many respects, we're going to just see more of the same, although the essential media ecology is going to be a different place. A new thing to look at, of course, is the role of location and GPS systems in the marketplace. They are now, most mobile phones come with a GPS device in them. It's allowing people to tell satellites and tell other people where they are. That's changing a fundamental reality of the internet, which in the early days, the internet wasn't very place-based and wasn't very cognizant of distance. You just sent off emails, or you sent off instant messaging, and you didn't care where the person accessed them or where they were. Well, nowadays, it's much easier to find out where people are, and this whole location layer of identity and information is coming back into the marketplace, and that's going to change commerce, social interactivity, the way that people learn about what's going on in each other's lives. So that's a big trend that we're looking at. The other big thing that we're looking at is the rise of the apps culture. We're seeing that 35% of Americans already have apps on their handheld devices, but not all of them use those apps yet. Only about 24% of people use the apps on their cell phones. But it's clearly where a tremendous amount of energy in the developer community and the telecom community is oriented, and media spaces. They're now thinking that this is a new way for brands to reestablish relationships with consumers, because they can have very particular, very personal relationships with apps and brands. And so this is a brand new way that people are filtering information, reestablishing connections with brands, and it's just going to be an interesting space to study as things go by. And I also talked about the coming age of the Internet of Things, where many more devices, many more people, many more artifacts, many more inanimate things will be connected to each other and telling each other stories. Literally, the walls, the ground, the sky will be telling us stories, and there are ways to capture that information, learn from it, and act on it. And so the floods of data that we now see are going to get even more aggressive and larger in the months and years to come.